the Dream Team, and when I say something, you guys are going to repeat after me. Are you ready? So I believe that. I believe that we. I believe that we will win.
Hey, baby.
I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win.
Thank you. Again, I'm Adrienne LeBron, and I just want to quickly, so many people have said so much things, and the beautiful day is that today when I'm here to talk about reproductive justice, everybody has already said how important it is that we are centering Indigenous, women of color in every single decision making we do in all areas and aspects of our life. So I don't have to beat that drum because it is so loud and clear.
Right there on the
Everybody
corner.
hears it, right?
Yeah.
Great. So
Yeah.
what I do want to say is that the definition of reproductive justice is when women and girls have the economic,
Paid sick days, living wage, and equal pay.
yes, right now, there is a paid sick day bill that we were unable to pass, the paid sick day that works for all of our families, that they're trying to push it through. We need to make sure that none of our families, especially those most impacted, aren't left behind in that paid sick days bill for Albuquerque. So again,
You know, my wife and I have become very actively involved in building a coalition, and it's called New Mexico Coalition for Families and Children. Now, we're modeling this coalition after the California Coalition for Families and Children, and this same coalition has been formed in a handful of other states. Other states see the problem and are doing something about reform. Arizona is currently stepping up to reform their child custody. And to give you just a little glimpse of family court, and how it works, and the inherent corruption that is involved. The judges right now are dependent on privately paid guardian ad litems, and these guardians, which you guys, I know some of you have seen some of the stuff coming out in the news about these court-appointed guardians abusing, extorting the elderly. Well, it's very much going on in family court. These guardian ad litems are given extreme amount of power, the power to take children, and they literally threaten mothers with taking their children if they don't pay their fees, and their fees range from $5,000 to $10,000 and can go up from there depending on how long your guardian ad litem's involved in your case. In our case, the judge has court ordered that we're to pay our guardian ad litem, and she will not return our child without paying the guardian ad litem, which is extortion. That's a form of extortion. And the courts, the judges are in collusion with these guardian ad litems, which are in collusion with other entities such as APN, mediator services, psychologist, therapist. I mean, there's so much money being made in divorce and family custody, that there's hands in the cookie jar on all kinds of levels. And and it's not like our current administration doesn't know what's going on. Governor Johnson, he spoke about this way back, and talked about it. I've written letters to Michelle Grisham, and they've responded with, "Oh, we're very aware of the problem." I've gotten response from the new mayor, Tim Keller, who's also, you know, they know the problem, but there's so much red tape around the problem that nothing seems to be able to get done. Now, New Mexico is a indictable state under petition. And what that means, if we could get 2% of the voting population to sign a petition that implicates criminal activity, say of a single judge, that judge can be indicted, and they would lose their seat. That's one of the things that my wife and I are determined to build and start the works for. And we both know that social change comes from education and awareness. So we have decided to put what little money that we've raised in our effort as the coalition toward some production gear, camera, lights, a computer that's big enough to house all the video, and we're working on producing a film that'll interview parents that are victims of the court, and there's a lot of them. It just blows my mind, the stories that come in, the tears, the anguish. It's an extreme level of suffering that's going on, and I could put a lot of blame on the men that perpetuate this, but the courts allow these predators, these narcissists, to get away with it, and court order the abuse of children. In my wife's case, it's been 2 years now where she only gets to visit her daughter for 2 hours a week. With my son, my son gets to visit his sister for 2 hours a week. Now, what kind of system allows for siblings to be torn apart? It makes no sense to me. The guardian ad litem was paid thousands of dollars by my wife's ex, and in our case, we have a small business. We're still working pretty much under the poverty line, but he's got a good city job, and he makes a lot of money. He was able to pay a really good lawyer. He was able to pay the guardian ad litem in full, thousands of dollars. And she basically went into court and lied, committed perjury, suggested that my wife was unfit to be a mother because she was raped. The judge suggested that if my wife wanted to get her child back, that she needed to change her living situation, which meant that she needed to divorce me, leaving my son without a father, or without two parents, divorced parents, but my wife and I have gone through a lot of emotion, but we've held strong. We've stayed together through all this. We'll be married 4 years in January, and she's an amazing mother. She's an amazing person. I mean, the judge admitted, she goes. The judge says, your parenting is not in question here. It is your being an adversary. And the thing about it is, she had good reason. I mean, after the court ordered my wife's daughter to reintegrate with her father, which this wasn't of the child's wishes. The child continued to stick to her story of abuse. She had to witness a lot of abuse between him and her mother. She had to witness him strangle her dog in front of her until it shit itself. And she wouldn't even call him father. Um, and she came home crying after every visit. She came home crying and didn't want to go back, and she, didn't want to see him. And the thing about it is he's doing this he's done this out of spite. Not that he cares anything for his daughter, because he goes on vacations without her. He sends her off to YMCA, and she spends a lot of time with her grandmother, who's elderly. I mean, she's got no business taking care of a child, and in fact, was so forgetful that she put my wife's daughter in danger and left her. I mean, this is a 7-year-old, 8-year-old being left by herself in a house all day by herself. The cops had to report it to CYFD. There's been numerous CYFD reports, substantiated abuse, negligence, sexual abuse. So much evidence against this man, but the judge doesn't care. She doesn't want to see any of it. I talked to a mother the other day that the judge said. The judge told her, she had evidence of abuse and everything, and the judge told her, and this is the same judge. This is Judge Ramirez, Deborah Ramirez, who told this mother that it wasn't the abuse wasn't recent. Well, who cares whether it was recent? There's abuse. And the DA, the district attorney here, is not prosecuting any of these abusive spouses on child abuse. There's no prosecution going on. I mean, there's all this this criminal activity and abuse of women and children, and nobody's doing a damn thing about it. But if you speak up or try and protect your child, and bring these kind of issues up to the courts, they see you as the aggressor, and that you're interfering with the parent being a parent. Well, as far as I'm concerned, these parents lost their right to be parents when they abuse their children and they abuse their spouses. They shouldn't have those rights. So I would, I would go so far as to say the courts are ordering the abuse of children. In our case, the psychologist made a recommendation beyond the recommendation of reintegration. He also made the recommendation that it would be abusive to the children if they were separated, and that if my wife's daughter was separated from her mother. Well, the judge threw those recommendations out, and these are the recommendations of the top psychologist in the state. Dr. Roll is one of the top forensic psychologists in the state of New Mexico. He evaluated us and saw us as perfectly fit parents. But the judge threw out those recommendations. She threw out all the evidence, and she went with the recommendations of the guardian ad litem. And the guardian ad litem, Laura Cass, has done this to dozens of mothers, maybe more. She seems to favor the men in all her cases. And really, it's more about favoring who's paying her bills or who's paying her money. And it's, there's even a case in Taos where she took a child from a perfectly fine father, who was living off the grid. The father did nothing to deserve having a child ripped away from him. I mean, it's absurd, and the idea that there's a ransom involved. Our last court order from the judge is that if you're going to have to pay the ransom to this guardian ad litem, and then you're going to have to repay her her fees, um, her finder's fee, or whatever, the fees to reinstate her, which would cost us thousands of dollars of which we don't have. So we're at a stalemate, and through that stalemate, I mean, it's been 2 years, 2 years of supervised visitation. Uh, this just, why? And I mean, I know that my wife's ex, his excuse is that we're gonna taint her mind. We're gonna turn her against him. I think after 2 years, I think it would be, if he's been a halfway decent father. I mean, there's no turning us against him. Other than I mean, maybe if she learned the truth, that this is all him. This is all his decision to keep her from her mother and her brother. And it's painful to watch her leave her brother every week. I mean, she hugs him until they're basically torn apart, and she has to go home. She wants so bad to have a life with her brother, but he won't allow it, and we can't get him back into court because we're under court order of a ransom to pay this guardian ad litem a bunch of money to further destroy our lives. And she's not a nice lady. She did, and she's not doing it. She didn't do her job in the first time around. So like, we're gonna pay her to not do her job. Is just absurd. But anyway, I'm gonna continue to post videos. But I, mostly this live broadcast was to, pull a few people in, show them my face, show them my sincerity. It'd really be great if any of you guys could make a donation to the site that we've put together, which is nmcfchildren.com, which stands for New Mexico Coalition for Families and Children. And again, this coalition is being modeled after the California Coalition and a handful of other coalitions that have formed by the model of the California Coalition. And just to give you a little idea of what they're doing in California, and they've already taken down a handful of guardian ad litems out there, court-appointed, custody evaluators. I mean, the corruption became so bad, that parents got together and formed this coalition. They have a lawyer. I've spoken to that lawyer out in California, and he has encouraged us to start a coalition here in New Mexico. Parents are going to have to step up and fight back, because our local politicians don't seem to have the power to do it. And the power is in the people. If the people step up and and start telling their stories, real change can happen. We're in the process of recruiting a lobbyist to represent us up at the Roundhouse to submit some bills to change some of the laws. Some of the laws we'd like to see changed is the privatization of custody evaluators. And these custody evaluators, they're lawyers, and for God's sake, what does a lawyer know about the welfare of families? None at all. So how they've been given this power to evaluate families and take children away from mothers and fathers, take children away from parents based on their own bias, which can be religious, it can be economic, it can be their own experience as children. In so many cases, these privately paid individuals are biased, and in 90% of the cases, the judge goes with the recommendations of these guardian ad litems over the recommendations of the top psychologists in the state. That's just, again, just absurd. That's absurd. So again, I'm urging mothers to step up and tell their stories. I've got a handful of mothers that say they're gonna tell their stories, and I've heard their stories. They're so unimaginable that if the public could actually hear their stories, there would be an outrage, because it is an outrage. So. And this is happening not just to mothers. This is happening to elderly people under the court-ordered guardians, they call them. These are privately paid individuals, which is inherent for corruption. It's built for corruption. Without any checks and balances, without any committee, without any oversight whatsoever. People are going to take advantage of people. That's just the way people are. People, they take advantage of people. And so again, our first production meeting and parent meeting is this Sunday at 2 p.m., 3904 Central Avenue. That's at my wife and I's address, our business address. I'll have some free coffee for those who show up, and we're going to bring up a couple issues. Maybe watch a video that really just sheds a light on what's going on. It's an investigative report done with some people within the system that are speaking out, and I would like to encourage anybody that's watching this video that's within the system and sees the corruption and sees the problem. If they could speak up and give us an interview and give us their side of the story, whether it be a CYFD person, even a guardian ad litem. Because I know there's some good ones out there. There are some guardian ad litems that really do care about what's going on within the system. There's even some lawyers out there that care about what's going on, but their hands are tied. And I can tell you, we've had a handful of lawyers turn us down on our case when they find out who the judge is. They don't want to go up against this particular judge. This judge is she's not ethical. She's not fair in her rulings. She's not treating parents with respect. I mean, if you were to read the court order, and we will share that court order in our film and probably some video clips as we start releasing video clips and interviews as we're putting this documentary together, that this judge, in her very court order, sounds like a schoolyard bully, just a straight up bully, talking so down on my wife and so disrespectful that it's inhuman. So I encourage mothers to come to the meeting, schedule an interview for the film, and speak out. We've got to speak out. We've got to, and through speaking out, we can put out a petition. All we need is 2% of the voting population to proceed with an indictment, to get these to start indicting people for their crimes. These are crimes against the citizens in New Mexico, and the cost is heavy. I mean, 2%. Number two in child abuse is not a joking matter, and I know we want to just blame the parents for this, but believe me, to rank number two in child abuse, that's a failed system. That's CYFD not doing their job. That's judges not doing their job, and we need to put a stop to it. You know, I've made a solid vow to dedicate all my spare time, and I don't have any spare time. You know, I run a business. I work 7 days a week, and I have no time for this. But I'm going to make time, and give it every bit of spare time that I have, without neglecting my family, without neglecting my son. I'm going to give it as much time as I can. I'm here for anybody that wants to talk. So please, call me. My number is 505-934-7592, and I'm always have an ear for the victims, and you know, and some of these victims have been so grateful for me to respond back to them, you know, because they get so much no response, you know. Nobody calls them back. You know, they lose friends, even family members turn against these victims in trying to speak out against the abuse and the neglect. So I'll be coming back, you know, and doing more live feeds, and posting more videos as we get closer to the meeting. I'll continue to do this as each month goes by. We're going to hold these meetings every first Sunday of the month, you know, until the demand is more. We'll hold more meetings if necessary. But you know, let's expose the abuse, not just for the children and the mothers, the parents that have been abused by the system, but the elderly too. These court-appointed guardians who are abusing elderly. I got a customer that's coming into the shop and told me some horrifying stories that you know, he's working in the field and working directly with patients that have court-appointed guardians that are being abusive. They're extorting, they're stealing, everything imaginable. You know, so get involved, man. Get involved in our coalition. Please go to the website, nmcfchildren.com, and make a pledge, donate to the cause, or just get involved. We're gonna need feet on the ground, getting people to sign some future petitions, and yeah. Well, I appreciate everybody that has joined this live feed, and you know, hopefully I've talked your ears off a little bit, and maybe I sound more convincing, you know, with a face behind it. You know, you see me post stuff all the time, but they're just words. You know, they're just words. Well, here I am. You know, me in real life. You know, saying, hey, we need help. We're desperate, and we've been victimized by the courts. We've been victimized by a very corrupt system that is violating human rights of parents, constitutional rights. We're building evidence, indictable evidence. We have lots of evidence that's definitely incriminating and criminal and indictable. So help us build this coalition. and fight back as citizens, because it's the only way it's going to get done. You know, because the mayor by himself can't do it. A local politician, you know, they're all powerless by themselves. But if you get a coalition, you get people behind the mayor, behind our local representatives, our state representative. You get enough people petitioning with enough signatures, and we can make some change. And New Mexico needs to make change, because New Mexico is being talked about in other states as being the worst pay-to-play states. And I haven't used the term pay-to-play in this video. What pay-to-play means is you have to pay to play. So you know, if you want justice within the system and family court, you got to have the money. And a lot of it, the average price tag on a child is $100,000. You know, those are lawyer fees, custody evaluation fees, guardian ad litem fees, psychologist fees, mediator fees, APN fees. APN is an organization that does all the supervised visitation, and you know, the person who runs the APN that we go to, you know, she's driving a Mercedes Benz. You know, she's profiting heavily on this suffering and abuse of families. You know, New Mexico is supposed to be a 50-50 custody state, and that's just not true. The judges, the courts are not following their own guidelines and rules. They're going against federal regulations, are going against well, they're just doing what they want to do, and it's criminal in its behavior. So yeah, join us, please. And until next time, love you guys. I appreciate you joining in. And you know, I will be going live more and more as I gain more confidence, and producing more videos and releasing videos. So yeah, you know, I mean, I'm scared. You know, I definitely fear retaliation, because you know, I've already had to deal with retaliation. The judge retaliated against us, and you know, and said that we would be that we could go to jail if we speak out. You know, which right there is a constitutional violation of our First Amendment rights. And you know, so you know, what I'm doing right now is a violation of our own court order, and I'm willing to challenge that under my constitutional rights as a citizen, and dare them to take me to jail for speaking out against social injustice, our own social injustice. All right, guys.